What's up everybody, it's RobinGaming here. So Mafia 3 came out last Friday. It's been kind of controversial in a way because the publisher 2K Games did not send out any review copies to anyone, making many people skeptical if there's something that may be holding back from everyone. So that's why this weekend I've put a grand total of 15 hours into the game to make sure that I've played a lot and enough of it to give you a really good opinion about the game. Now I do want to quickly point out as a very quick disclaimer that I did not beat it. It looks like to actually get to the ending of Mafia 3 you'll need a good 30 or 40 hours to put into the game, and that's you know, with the fact that the work week is starting again tomorrow and that there's so many other big releases coming out, I wanted to make sure I played lots of the game to the point where 15 hours is definitely, in my opinion, more than enough to give a good opinion about this game, and we'll get into that in a very short bit, I'd say. But yeah, it's more than enough for sure, trust me on that, and I would say let's just simply get into this actual review, you know. So the pros and the cons. Now that's pretty much what I divided this review into. Let's start off with the positive things, the things I really liked about Mafia 3, and we'll start off immediately with the opening. I thought the first 2 hours especially of Mafia 3 are very well done. You as the protagonist, Lincoln Clay, this black male who has been in the US Army, right? He returns to America, back to his sort of family, has a stepdad and a stepbrother, where he's going to be helping them out. The game deals a lot with racism as well, so be prepared for that if you didn't already know that. But the story that it sets up is definitely one of the reasons why you're going to be wanting to play this game and why I shouldn't really say too much about it. Let's just say that at some point shit hits the fan, that's when the game really starts opening up. But in the first 2 hours, the way it sets up its story is very well done, where I was totally into it. You know, I was like, yeah, let's go. That's exactly the reason why I've been playing it so much, is because the way it opens, it has you hooked right from the beginning, and that's what I thought was a really strong point about Mafia 3. In the first 2 hours, where it is more linear, where the missions you're going to be doing, there's not a lot of freedom there, or where it doesn't open itself up yet, it's really a big, strong part of the game for sure. And then when we get to the actual gameplay that we get afterwards, when you do really have the open world of New Bordeux, which is pretty much New Orleans, right? Louisiana. What you have there, you know, the gameplay in itself in the open world, I thought was also quite fun. You're gonna be taking out lots of enemies that will be located in certain bases all the time, right? And so what you do is you drive up to a certain base, you try to take out as many as you can stealthily, and then when finally they spot you pretty much, right, you get into a big gunfight. And in itself, you know, it's definitely not something out of the ordinary that you haven't played before, but the gameplay was quite fun and I've enjoyed myself. It's why I have put 15 hours into this game, is simply because I did like playing the game for sure. There's nothing there that really feels too much like a chore in general, but there's definitely some downsides to the gameplay, which I'll get into in a bit. Another thing I really liked about the game is the soundtrack. The soundtrack is especially what you would want from a game that takes place in the 1970s. They have all the bands and artists that you would want, from the Rolling Stones to Jimi Hendrix to the Blues Brothers. Just driving around in New Bordeux in Mafia 3 feels great with all these radio channels, just like it would in, for example, GTA 5. It's very comparable in that way. Yeah, the experience of doing that is simply a blast. Then there's also some other small little aspects to the game that I myself liked a lot that you don't really see in many other games out there. For example, you can really easily call in certain services, like by simply hitting the L1 button, you can call in somebody that will bring you a vehicle that you need for a quick getaway, or ammo, or to store cash. You know, the game has this feature where you will pretty much have pocket cash with you all the time. Let's say you would have 5,000 with you. If you die in Mafia 3, you lose 50% of that, which is why it's very important to keep storing your cash. And the fact that you can very easily call in these small little vans that just come speeding at you all of a sudden, that will be there within 5 seconds, where you can buy new ammo and store your cash. Those were all neat little things about the game that I liked quite a lot. But that's pretty much where it stops with the pros, and then we need to really get into the cons. And unfortunately, there are quite some negative things to say about Mafia 3. So let's start off with the story. As I said, it opens it up, it sets itself up really well in those first 2 hours. But afterwards, when the open world is really completely unlocked, when you can do all the certain missions that you can take in the game, that's when the story starts becoming way less important. important to the point where you're pretty much going to be seeing a cutscene maybe every hour or maybe even 2 hours or so. Really, it's a shame because, yeah, you know, the game gives you this goal of trying to take over the entire city, and that goal stays the same the entire time after those first 2 hours that I just talked about. And that's why there's just not a lot of development happening with characters. No, you're just going after these mafia bosses that you want to take down, and there's going to be cutscenes showing that can be very original and cool there, you know, with just taking them out. But at the same time, the story itself doesn't really advance in those complete 30 hours anymore. It really is the first 2 hours where it sets itself up, and also I'm sure the ending where there's going to be quite some cutscenes again. But the whole part in between, there's just not a lot of development. The story really becomes a lot less important in the actual game once it opens up. The gameplay in itself that I just talked about, as I said, it can be fun to play, but it is very repetitive. You know, your goal with taking over the entire city, it's pretty much divided into 10 big territories, and your goal is to take over every territory one by one. Now, the way you're doing that is pretty much going to be the exact same thing all the time. Every single territory is divided up into certain records, these groups that offer certain services, and your goal is to damage them. So it will give you, for example, a certain goal of damage them by $50,000. How do you do that? By taking over or undergoing the exact same mission the entire time, which is, you know, kill a certain guy or interrogate him or destroy something. And all the time what you're going to be doing is walking up to a certain base, as I said, taking down enemies stealthily, or just simply trying to do it guns blazing in that way. You get to your goal, you damage their service, you do that 5 more times, and you've finally taken over the record. You get to a certain record boss, which is once again exactly the same type of mission. This boss gets killed, you call into one of your guys to take over the area, and that's pretty much it. The moment you've cleared all the records in one territory, you're gonna get to a big territory boss. That's when there will be a certain, you know, cool cutscene playing beforehand and afterwards as well, where there's a bit of story to be told, but that's pretty much it. Is there anything else you're gonna be doing in the game? No, not really. There are certain like junction boxes that you can wiretape, which really just comes down to collectibles. You're just gonna be collecting certain things, and then once you wiretape this junction box, buy those collectibles, you unlock more collectibles in the game where you're gonna be looking for certain magazines or whatever. And that's really all there's to it. There's some side missions also just come down to the same thing I just talked about. It really is a shame, but the game from the first 2 hours, you know, once that is pretty much done, the entire time you're doing the exact same thing all over again, just taking over zones, expanding your territories, and trying to in that way take over the entire city. That's what the game comes down to. Then talking about the graphics are alright. I feel like the lighting really covers up a lot of the detail that the game itself is actually kind of lacking, and there's just so many bugs all over the place that I keep running into. It's honestly kind of crazy. The game just needed a few more months to you know, get lots of polish there, where, you know, I've just seen crates flying all over the place. I've gotten bumped into cars or whatever, and it didn't damage me at all. There's just all sorts of crazy shit happening that feels really awkward at the same time as well, which really, yeah, is quite sad to see. The game has crashed on me, I think once or twice, and the frame rate is also quite unstable. It already runs at 30 frames per second on consoles, but it's not even really very stable at that. And in the end, I guess we should kind of work our way towards the conclusion, is that Mafia 3, I was hoping it was going to be a special type of game, but that's simply not what it is. Sadly, Mafia 3 opens up great with a story that really gets you into it, but once it's really started opening up, once you get to the open world aspect of the game, the story just becomes way less important. The presentation is alright, the graphics are pretty okay, but there's just too many bugs and an unstable frame rate that bring it down. And the gameplay then, what the actual game is about, simply gets repetitive. You're doing the exact same thing all over again. It's the open world structure you're going to be completely used to from other, particularly Ubisoft games, where all you're going to be doing is taking over zones and getting some collectibles, and that's basically what the entire game comes down to. You're going to be doing that for 30 or 40 40 hours, but don't really prepare to be doing many different things in that time you're going to be playing Mafia 3. And that's, yeah, what in the end, the unfortunate conclusion is going to have to be for Mafia 3. It's an okay game. That's everything it is, in my opinion. It's pretty much exactly everything you've already seen from open world games before. Nothing really done amazingly well, except for a story in the first few hours that really gets you hooked, and that's pretty much it. So with that being said, that was my review for Mafia 3. Put 15 hours into a game. I'm definitely going to be playing it more because, you know, I am still enjoying it. It's just not in any way a special type of game or something out of the ordinary that you've never seen before. Mafia 3, in my opinion, gets a 6.5 out of 10. Thanks a lot for watching. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, of course, and then for now, I hope you enjoyed the video, and then, yeah, I'll hope to see you again next time.